I'm hungry. We start the show. I can't help it because what happens is we're talking about breakfast.
Yes.
We start getting into sausage, egg, and cheese sandwiches, and whether it's on a roll,
bacon, roll
bagels, you go sausage, you go, and that's it. Like, and we were talking also about what pairs best with it, and I'm thinking of like raspberry iced tea.
So I'm
the
not
orange juice thing. That's old school. It's too much acid, too acidic.
Let me get comfortable here.
But I'm a big breakfast person. I don't get to have breakfast here. And Key is sending us. Key will be back later in the week. Key is sending us pictures of him making avocado toast, which looked, by the way, amazing.
First of all, hard eye roll to your co-host captain sending pictures. I was like, bring breakfast when you come back by. I don't want to talk to you.
Right. He said, we can't have this on set. No, yes, we can,
Don't
Key.
bring
yes,
it.
We can.
Like, don't tease us. Also, breakfast for me, so I'm not a big juice girl unless it's like legit fresh pressed juice.
Okay.
But breakfast for me is usually like omelet, avocado toast, omelet, spinach, mushrooms, onions.
That sounds good.
Avocado toast.
Yeah.
The one deli near us, you can get a fresh pressed juice. It's called the Hangover Helper. Apple, beet, ginger, and orange. And there might be something else.
Ginger always seems to be in everything
delicious.
that.
I'm obsessed with ginger.
Yeah.
I said to my friend the other day, can I name my future kid Ginger? She was like, no, name the dog Ginger. Don't name a kid Ginger.
Why wouldn't you?
Fine.
Why?
I don't know,
Ginger
that's what
was
she
one
said.
of the most popular characters in the history of
There
sitcoms.
you go. There you go.
So why wouldn't you go? Bring it back. It's a classic name.
I think Ginger's an adorable name. Listen, there's no naming of children right now in my life, so let's move on.
Are you sure?
I'm positive.
We shall move on. If you could put a name on game one, what would you put on it?
Stinker.
Really?
Yeah.
You weren't thrilled by this?
I love this Phoenix Suns squad, and I picked them to win the series, but it wasn't as compelling a game that I was hoping
You're
for.
right. 118-105 didn't feel like, and again, it's 13. Was there a point at all in that game that you were like, oh, the Bucks are going to make a push here, or the Bucks have got this, or it felt like the Suns felt like they were in control from the get. I mean, it just seemed like there was nothing the Bucks could do defensively. We're going to do our overreactions to game ones coming up in a little bit because we love doing that after game. It's just like week one of the NFL. We go nuts. We also do game one as well. But it's just like it felt like the Suns were always in control here. They felt like the more prepared team. And Chris Paul was fantastic in his NBA Finals debut.
Almost everybody was fantastic in their NBA Finals debut. Everybody wearing orange or purple, that is, on that side.
Devin Booker couldn't make a three, but other than that, he was.
Yeah,
very
you know,
good.
I get that he couldn't make a three, but what is he, 10 for 10 from the free throw line? I mean, that's legit, and it's easy points there. Listen, I had the privilege of joining the pre-halftime and post-game coverage last night with Kevin Winter, PJ Carlesimo, and then, of course, Mark Castor, Doris Burke, and John Barry were on the call. So listening to those guys up close as we prepared to, get in and out on the radio call, Barry's like, what are they doing on his screen? Like, nobody can defend Chris Paul over the course of the game, which we all could see. And so for that, it felt like it was never going to be a contest. Winter and I were like, this is a wrap. And of course, Coach Carlesimo, with all of his experience, is like, I don't know, the Bucks just scored 11 straight. They're going to make a run. And they did. But when you get to 9 and Cam Johnson makes this tremendous defensive stance on your MVP,
right? Well,
there goes that.
Yeah, that's the problem too. When you're down by so much, like it's so hard to make that kind of a comeback. You can score 11 in a row, and it only puts a dent, and all it takes is that one big shot to stop the momentum. As you mentioned, though, look, and we've kind of felt this about. Remember the Bucks against the Nets, and Mike Budenholzer. And it's like you got to make adjustments. You got to make adjustments.
48 point.
The switching on screens is something that it's become a thing in the NBA. 1 through 5, we can switch. A lot of teams feel that way. We feel confident no matter who it is, they can guard. But when you go big, when you have Bobby Portis out there or Brook Lopez out there, you can't do that. And other teams see that, and they're going to put you up and try to get that matchup they want. That's how you run things. That's why Monty Williams had such a great game plan. Tim Legler, ESPN NBA analyst, of course, he was on SportsCenter last night, and he talked about how the Suns looked like the more prepared team.
There was 2 completely different levels of sharpness in this game. I'm sorry, Phoenix was just so much more prepared, so much more confident, so much more sure of what they were doing, what they were trying to accomplish. They basically had Chris Paul and Deandre Ayton be the absolute best versions of themselves, and Devin Booker does what he does. He got to his number. He didn't shoot the ball great, but to have your 3 best players play that well. And you look at Milwaukee, Giannis clearly wasn't himself. Chris Middleton was pretty good overall most of the night, and Drew Holiday wasn't very good offensively. He lost his aggressiveness once again. So for me, no comparison in the two teams tonight. That did not feel like, at one point it was 9 with 6 minutes to go. That felt like a 25-point game to me. Phoenix was that much sharper than the Milwaukee Bucks tonight.
It's a great point that he made about the switching. It's a great point he also made about which team was sharper than the other. And then the addition of Giannis, which we'll get to, that's a huge story in this whole thing, is Giannis playing, and also how he said he felt after playing a week after an injury that a lot of us, held our breath wondering, when are we going to see him again? We didn't think it would be this soon, but he was back. But you mentioned the Suns. He mentions the Suns. Let's talk about it. Devin Booker did not shoot well from 3. You said 10 for 10 from the line, and he finished still with 27 points. Deandre Ayton, you heard Legs mention. Ayton goes for 22 and 19 rebounds, by the way, which is obviously a huge part of the game. When you want to get stops, you got to get the rebounds. And Chris Paul. Chris Paul went for 32 points and 9 assists. 4 or 7 from downtown. And, man, it looked like he went back in time a couple of times, right? When he was getting the matchups he wanted, a ton of ISO scoring. Tons of it in this game for the Suns. They got the matchups they wanted, and Chris Paul was the engine of this team. And eventually he's going to be the facilitator once they start figuring out you got to get the ball out of his hands. But in this first game, what a debut in the NBA Finals for him. Chris Paul dropping 32 points last night in Game 1 for the Suns in their win over the Bucks. Overnight delivery brought to you by USPS. Business is changing, and USPS is changing with it. Find out how at USPS.com/New Roots. United States Postal Service, priority you. So, again, we'll do the overreaction thing.
Can't wait.
But from the Suns' perspective, though, This is exactly how you wanted this to go. This is exactly how you wanted this to go because you set the tone already that Chris Paul's the engine. Devin Booker actually can play better, believe it or not. Even after 20, he can play better. And then Deandre Ayton, who is still a very young player, established himself against a big front line, against Giannis being in the game. So you got a lot of length with the Bucks. 19 rebounds. That means he was a beast. 17 defensive rebounds for him. So it's not like he was getting tips that get you those extra cheap, right? They give you cheap offensive rebounds when you just tip it. No, he was getting defensive rebounds to get the stops you needed. And what a difference maker he is. So for the Suns, they win Game 1 in every series. They did it again, and they set a tone already now for the finals.
Well, it wasn't a big deal last night, but you do wonder in terms of depth. And it probably will not be a large deal. I remember when I used to substitute teacher, it was small deal or little deal. It's a small deal. Dario Saric, the injury, just in terms of the depth, and if DeAndre Ayton should get into foul trouble. So of course you hope that he's able to get back out on the floor for the squad. But as much as we talk about the headliners, campaign, big time 3 and then an idiot 3, but that's okay. The mistake response was there from this Phoenix Suns squad, but you got good minutes from him. You got great minutes from Cam Johnson.
Right.
So to me, just as important as obviously CP3 and Book are, the depth of this Phoenix Suns squad is, for me, one of the reasons in which I favor them to win the series, because they play with such tremendous continuity and confidence. And we talked about it a ton yesterday in the pregame. And then you hear the sound from Book and CP3 about the accountability, about how they, were getting after it. And this dates back to last year's bubble. And if you start the clock from then to now, they have one of the best records overall in the league. So this is a unit that has continued to be called up, if I may use Monty Williams' phrase, for this moment. And yesterday, they look like that.
Yeah, it's incredible. Again, throw all the asterisks out, whatever you want to say. You get to this point now, it's going to be about winning and winning the chip, getting that trophy, and the Suns still look like that team that can do it. Now, we thought without Giannis, maybe the Bucks wouldn't be the same team, and that's why the Suns can win the series. But Giannis played, and it didn't seem like to make a difference. Or did it? That's something that Monica wants to talk about coming up. Deandre Ayton, again, 22 points, 19 rebounds while shooting 80% from the field.
I told you I put some respect on this man's name.
Around the basket, he does not miss, and that's huge. And that's also Stats Incredible, brought to you by My Computer Career, training for a better life. So let's do it. Let's do it. The overreactions from Game 1. Because
let's go.
You watch the game, and you're like, this is how I feel about this.
Let's go.
Right away, that's how we feel. So we'll discuss that. Overreactions and yours as well. 888-729-3776. 888-SAY-ESPN. So that we will give you after I give you this from Straight Talk. So it's time for some Straight Talk. We've all been there. You have some real work to do.
Heard specifically about the youngsters because this is their first playoff run, whether it's Booker or Ayton or Bridges. What are you seeing from those guys in complementing what Paul is providing?
Well, first of all, I'm seeing skill. Devin Booker is a star. This brother is special, and tonight was the latest example of how special he can be. Let's give major props to Deandre Ayton. He had about 22 points, 19 rebounds, and was a constant presence and force throughout this evening. Mikal Bridges came off and hit a couple of threes. Obviously, Cameron Payne, he doesn't shoot much, but when he puts it up, it usually goes in. I'm sorry, not Cameron Payne, but Cameron Johnson. And then you look at Cameron Payne, what he comes in, what he's capable of doing off the bench. But it's a tribute and a credit to them that they're willing to listen to the tutors, to the just the leadership and the guidance from a veteran like CP3. In today's generation of players, so many times we look at youngsters and they've got the skill, and because they've got the skill, Scott, as you've reported on so many occasions, they've got the skills, they've got the bag, they know what they can bring to the table, and as a result, they feel they have arrived, that they don't necessarily need to listen to anybody. But
right.
CP3 comes here, devoid of a championship, having had that escape him throughout his illustrious 16-year career, and despite the absence of a championship, they treat him like a champion because they respect the knowledge that he's trying to bless them with and the level of wisdom that he's imparted upon them. And so you got to give them credit where credit is due. To be young, to be established, to have the money, to have the skill set, to have all the adulation thrown in their direction, and to still be humbled enough to be held in check by a leader searching for his first championship, not one that came here as a champion. You got to give credit where credit is due. It shows that although they're young, they're incredibly mature, and they showed it tonight by being prepared for game one and pretty much throughout these playoffs. Every single series they've walked into, they've come here prepared and ready to play and put somebody else on their heels to start the playoffs. You got to give credit where credit is due in that regard.
I agree. Really well put. There's a lot to like about being out in the Valley, but there's one thing that's the challenge, and that's that wake-up call comes early. And I know first take will be, I'm looking at my watch, you got to get some early rest to get up early and bring the heat tomorrow. I appreciate you.
I'm good, but please don't say bring the heat. It's 106 degrees already here, okay?
Yeah, but it's a dry heat. You don't sweat?
I don't care. It's heat. Listen, I ain't going to complain. I like the heat better than the cold, so I ain't going to front. But it's roasting here. Roasting.
Turn the AC
you have
up,
a tan
my guy.
already, Scott.
I know your suite is
I know your suite
well looked after. Stephen A. Smith, I appreciate you, man.
Something like that.